Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Pregame Network Podcast. I am your host, Dan, joined as always by my bestest pal, Anthony. Say hi, Anthony.
Hello.
This is episode 119, and as usual, we'll get into all the shit that went on this past week, but not before we talk about what we have been playing. Do you have anything like crazy out of the ordinary or no?
Not really. We obviously have something that we managed to
Yeah,
get
well, yeah,
in
we'll
and
get to that.
finish together.
Yeah,
We'll get to that. It was another one of those weeks where I'm trying to find the next game to sink my teeth into. So I scroll on over to the different libraries, the different subscriptions, whatever I have at my fingertips, and I basically flipped through a handful of games to see what was going to hold my attention. I tried, I booted up the Dead Space remake. Just like, I don't know if I'm feeling it. Maybe as we get closer to Halloween, then, I tried Gears Tactics, and while I have good things to say about it, yeah, I do have good things to say about Gears Tactics, but I'm not far along. I don't know if I'm going to sit down and actually play it.
Yeah.
I booted up each individual Gears game just to feel them out, and I ended up playing a little bit of each.
Interesting.
I tried a little bit of Skate.
Skate. Dad, you're all over the place this week.
I told you, man, I'm all over the place. I booted up and played 1/3 of a match of cricket in Cricket 26.
Like the sport cricket?
Like the sport cricket.
Okay.
Yeah. I started to get a headache because I'm not built for this. What I ended up settling on, Dan, is there are two games that currently have my attention that I will try to put time into and complete. The first one is Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, which is the first game in the remake trilogy of Final Fantasy VII games. I played the first couple chapters in that, and I enjoyed about as much as I did the first time I played it. I haven't really touched it in about 5 years, so it's not super fresh in my mind, which is always nice when you're going back to a game like this. So I've been going through that. I'm probably going to end up sticking with that over the other game, and the other game being Starfield. So I decided to sit down and try.
I'm excited to hear this.
Yeah, I'm not very far in it. It's like this is the game where I'm just like, oh, come on, you gotta get through this. You can't. This is the one you can't ditch. You're kind of obligated to, because
before you dig too deep into that, I have a little bit of experience with Starfield as well. Not this past week, but like when it first launched, so probably not the best reception.
This briefly, yeah.
Yeah, I think I dumped like a grand total of maybe 5 hours in, and then I was just like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, and I just never touched it again.
Yeah, like I'd been planning to finally sit down and do it for a bit. I never made it very far in it either. I mainly watched somebody else play bits and pieces of it. I think my takeaway normally when I talk about Starfield is like it is a slightly weaker Bethesda game for people who really like Bethesda games. Like if you like Oblivion, if you like Fallout, and you wanted a space setting, this is like their serviceable attempt, but it's in the modern day, so parts of it really suck, right? I am a little further along than the amount of time that you've put into it, so not too much extra to add. A lot of it felt nice because it's just like I was sitting there, and when I got control for the first time, I'm like, here's the clear test, here's the Bethesda test, right? I'm gonna press Y. Am I going to jump when I press Y? And I pressed Y, and I jumped.
What was the intended effect there? I don't know anything about Bethesda games.
For some fucking weird reason, for as long as they've had jumping, it's been mapped to the Y button by default. So it's like it's muscle memory.
The weirdest default button mapping ever. What the? Actually, in Gears E-Day, the default jump button is Y for whatever reason.
Well, the interesting thing about Gears E-Day, and I think one of the Assassin's Creed games tried that too, is because the idea is like low maneuvers, like sliding into cover, would be tied to A, and then jumping a high maneuver would be tied to Y. I guess that's the logic. But in Bethesda games, the idea is they want to free up, like, obviously you gotta reload your weapon, or in Oblivion you have certain things mapped to X. A is like your interact, like don't fuck with the interact key. That's got to be A in their opinion, and then B is for certain other actions and cancellations and stuff. So Y was always like the last man standing for the jump button. So all this to say, this weird preamble about the fucking Y button jumping is just small things like that I immediately remembered the engine. And it remembered me, and it was a magical moment that lasted for like 10 seconds. Because like, what's nice about Starfield is like the beginning, just kind of like it for someone like me who's not that interested in what the overall setting and scope is in Starfield. Like I don't really like, nothing about the game is hooking me from a story or narrative standpoint. Having like the prologue mission it felt like 10 minutes essentially, blissful. It felt nice, you know, it was good. And as I'm sitting there, the only thing I can really say about it so far is that there was clearly a great deal of effort into refining the visual assets in this game, as in to like dress it up around a fairly old and limited engine that has been clowned on for years in the past, you know? Because like, whatever you have to say about Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, New Vegas, whatever you have to say about them as games, and everybody likes different ones a little bit differently, how they look and move has always been very rudimentary, for the most part. I would say, yeah. I happen to think that the Elder Scrolls games have some charm and beauty in the setting, even if the worlds are a little rocky. Fallout I've described as aggressively ugly, at least the Bethesda ones. Like it's an affront to my eyes, and it even was back then. But it's just like Starfield, outside of their character like faces, which have the weird like meat within a sack kind of thing going on with them. I think that's how I described it when Vanguard was new, Call of Duty Vanguard. I'm just like, they all have this weird thing going on with their face, and Starfield does that terrible trait expertly. So like that's the vibe I got the entire time. Outside of that, like the way things move, the environments, everything looks nice, and it's like, okay, if you had to look at a next gen Bethesda game, despite all the problems with it and the more I'll have to say about it next week, it looks adequate in a nice way.
Adequate.
Probably
the best thing you could possibly say about it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I did play some Starfield. I'll probably have more to say about it next week if I stick with it, hopefully. Other than that, you know, the rotation I mentioned before, you know, with Street Fighter and you know, I say gacha games, but it's mainly been Genshin Impact. I finished the summer event. There's a whole new area they just added. I'll probably get to that because it's a snow area, and you know me, I love my fucking snow. So it looks real nice, sounds real nice. I'll probably have more to say about that next week, maybe. We'll see. But that's pretty much all I've been playing, except for the other stuff that we've played together.
Yeah, we'll get to that once I
take it away,
get to mine.
Daniel.
What have I played this week? Not a whole lot. I have really come to a semi-grinding halt on Doom 2016 for a variety of reasons. Not because I got bored or anything like that. Just Gears E-Day kind of took that time away from
I saw
Doom.
that. You've been on that all week.
Yeah, I've okay. Beyond like the staples of like Helldivers, Finals, Battlefield for me in particular, I've been playing a lot of Gears of War lately. I've been putting a decent amount of time into E-Day. I want to get more and more familiar with like the overall movement system because it's very new in E-Day. For the better, in my opinion, but we can talk about that later. It's not that important right now. I also went back and I dug out my old copy of Gears of War 3 and I started playing the arcade mode from the very beginning. And this is part of the reason why I messaged you a couple days ago and I was like, the roadie run belongs in Gears. Like the sprint is like kind of out of place in E-Day. Like I understand why they did it, but it like to remove something that core to the Gears of War identity, like kind of a taboo thing to do in my opinion, now that I've put some more thought into it. Gears of War 3, Anthony, you hit the nail on the fucking head, my friend. It really is the best third-person shooter ever made. It is so much fun. And I think I said this to you on Discord verbatim, like, even though it is, however old it is, like 12 years at this point or whatever, probably more, it still looks like $1 million. Like, it looks phenomenal. And then when you can also give it a frame rate boost on the Series X because of their backwards compatibility features, which is really nice. Now I get to experience it at 60 frames, you know, running flawlessly. It looks as good as it does. Epic did such a good job with that game back when it came. I don't remember what year it launched, but it is so much fun. It's so good. So I've been playing a lot of Gears of War lately. And what really kind of chaps my ass about Gears in today's day and age is that I don't really use my console anymore, as we've talked about ad nauseum. So the only Gears of War game that I can play right now, if I wanted to, on my PC is Gears of War Reloaded. And like, that's great. That's all well and good. But like, I want to play Gears 3 or even Gears 2, like just to experience the story again. Because I haven't played through the Gears story since, I don't know, at least 10 years. And then the Gears 3 story was phenomenal, in my opinion, especially the way that they wrapped everything up. And like, I can't even recall specific events. Like, the only thing that I am really remembering very well as I'm talking about it, and spoiler alert, you haven't played Gears 3, you've had your time, is the fact that Dom dies at the end, or towards the end of Gears 3. He find Maria, like, and she's basically on death's doorstep, and then he takes the train and like rams it into the Locust base or something like that. I haven't gotten to the end yet.
You're blending a lot of different things together there.
Okay.
So one of the through lines of Dom's story from 1 to 2 is it's something that was in 1, but they made it a focal point in 2, is that Dom's looking for his wife. In 2, he finds her, and she's unfortunately been lobotomized. She was like a slave to the Locusts, essentially.
Right. Oh, that was in 2? I thought that was in 3.
That was in 2.
Jesus.
No, that was in 2.
Oh my God. Okay.
And that's why he is in the state that he is in 3, where he's kind of like disheveled.
Really likes
tired.
gardening.
he takes care of his tomatoes, and then why he ultimately, one of the many reasons he makes that decision in Gears 3. Yes.
Okay. I really was blending a ton of shit. Wow. I should go back and play, because we played through a little bit of Gears 1 like within the past year or so, I think, with either Ultimate or Reloaded dropping.
It all kind of blurs together, because I have tried to tackle
really
Gears 1 again in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I really do want to go back and play the trilogy. It would also be the perfect primer before E-Day, because like E-Day is kind of has nothing to do with Gears 4 and 5, which is kind of nice. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I've been playing. A little bit of Doom, not that much. We tried the new update in Helldivers, which consequently kicked our asses. Like the difficulty curve on the new Illuminate enemy is massive, and they just overwhelm you with numbers. It was rough. We took a shellacking. So that a little bit of the finals, and I've been really getting into sniping in Battlefield for whatever reason. But that's pretty much it. That's all I've been playing. Nothing too crazy. Yeah. Do we have anything? Oh, we do have an update. Look at that. An important update too. But before we do that, we don't happen to have a writing question, do we?
We don't have a writing question, but we didn't talk about the other thing.
Oh, that's right. I blocked it out of my subconscious because I fucking hated it. Anthony and I recently finished playing through Halo Campaign Evolved. Boy, where to begin? Why don't you take the lead, because there's just so many things that like I don't even know what to start with first.
So I mean, we did this primarily in 2 big chunks. When it launched, we did the prologue missions and like the first 2/3 of Halo.
It was definitely so. The first play session that we had, we did all of the prologue missions and then 2 missions from the actual campaign. The second play session that we had, we got through a big chunk of it, and then we only had 3 missions left, and we played the final 3 missions yesterday.
Yeah, so that's how we ended up playing the game. Me, I kind of had this baseline of my general opinion on it, but that I wanted to test against actually playing the game. And I think you went in a bit more, not confidently, but with, I guess, more optimism than I did, as far as what it could potentially be like.
Mm-hmm.
As a result of starting with the prologue, I wouldn't say our sights were set high. I think both of us were like, oh, it can only get better from here, because the prologue missions were just that kind of cheap and kind of crappy. Getting into the campaign proper, I think it did end up being downhill from there instead of uphill from there, because obviously we've both talked a great deal about Halo. You are probably the bigger Halo overall guy. I really like 1 and 3 and appreciate 2. I think the whole trilogy is pretty good. I'm one of the few people that don't like Reach all that much, but I 1 and 3 are probably the ones I feel the most confident in talking about and the ones I enjoy playing the most. And right from the get-go, regardless of whether you think it's from the prologue missions or the opening missions, is we kind of felt something was just off, right? I mean, it's clearly the result of transitioning from a Blam-based engine where like the foundation of the roots go all the way back to Blam to Unreal, but like I guess that like things just didn't move right. There seemed to be a delay in areas there really shouldn't be.
There was a little bit too much jank for me as well. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if you noticed, especially in the reload animations for some reason.
Yeah, it just, like, the best way I put it when we played it, I'll put it again, is, like, people often mock the idea of, like, fans just putting an older game into Unity or Unreal and saying, look at this fan remake. And it felt like I was playing one of those fan remakes, but
That's
with like almost like if you give it like a small budget, because every time I tried to give it a little bit of credit by saying, oh, this looks or feels nice, I remember it in the context of Halo. It's not living up to the original vision of Halo 1, and then at the same time I'm just like, well, this is just default, this is how things are handled default in engine now. And I just from top to bottom, regardless of whatever individual gripes we have with levels or weapons or game or balancing and all that kind of stuff, I just was not impressed by this remake. It really just feels like, enough time has passed and, default engine assets have gotten so good that despite the fact that there are technical improvements as far as things like graphics that are just like the raw standards have gotten higher in the 3 generations that passed since Halo 1, it's just like you put in minimal effort and just it's almost like there were jokes in the past when HD remasters were getting big where they talked about up-res machines, where it's just like, take the existing one, make it so that the instead of 480 it's in 1080 now, and it's like the easiest thing in the world. You just render it at a higher thing. Sometimes there are issues in the background because it's not meant to be viewed that way, but it is, you're just rendering it at a higher resolution, right?
Yeah.
It feels like I'm looking at the graphics equivalent of that throughout the whole thing, and it reflects in how certain effects look and also just in how everything feels. It really feels like the best improvements of this are the result of the engine just being what it is in the year 2026,
Yeah, I mean, there was just like, it's a lot of little things. I think we said this the first time we talked about it. The overall reception to Campaign Evolved just seems like death by 1,000 cuts. And the biggest thing to me, especially in our most recent PlayStation, the one in which we actually finished the game, the dialogue was just terrible. I don't know who is mixing it or doing that, but like the dialogue, like there were a lot of awkward pauses in between different pieces of dialogue. And like that's a pretty big thing. Like Halo's a very story-driven game. Like even though they got Steve Downs, and I am blanking on Cortana voice actress's name, but like it felt like they were given extremely poor direction, and it really showed during the actual playthrough of the game. Going through those prologue missions before getting into the main campaign really did the main campaign a huge disservice, as like playing those 4 missions as a primer versus going into the actual campaign, because it's really difficult to fuck up the story of Halo. Like it's such a classic and iconic piece of writing.
You mean specifically the first Halo, not Halo as a series, because it is very easy to fuck up the Halo as a series, as we've learned.
Yeah, fine. I'm talking strictly in the confines of Halo 1 Combat Evolved. It's really difficult to fuck that story up, and they didn't like fuck up the broad strokes of it. It was like I said before, it's the death by 1,000 cuts. It was tainted by poor direction, really awkward interactions between the characters, different changes that they made along the way from the original to this one. Johnson is just just weird in this game for whatever reason. Like, it felt like he was on a sitcom the entire time, because he would just turn to the camera, look you directly in the fucking eye, and like deliver a one-liner. It was just so out of place.
It is. See, like you mentioned moments like that. Just in general, the cutscene pacing was abysmal. The cutscenes, I could see that is because for me, part of that playful jank we mentioned before is that I would say about 40% of the cutscenes that played, I only saw the first frame of because the entire thing wouldn't play for me.
Yeah, that was another factor that I wanted to get to. The technical performance of this game is total hot garbage, for a variety of different reasons. The way that it runs is just, it's serviceable, like you said, but number one, the grenade splash damage radius was like aggressive, especially during our first time sitting down with the game. We were dying left and right to regular like grenade tosses. Number two, for me in particular, I'm on PC. I had to reset my key bindings every single time that we decided to play the game. Like, what the fuck is that? I still can't wrap my head around that. Number two, I couldn't change my resolution without changing the default Windows resolution on my computer. Again, what the hell is that? It makes absolutely no sense to me in 2026. Number four, you're playing on Xbox, right? So naturally, I would assume, and I'm sure any other gamer out there would assume, that if you're playing Halo on an Xbox, it is going to run a lot better natively on the Xbox. Well, apparently, there is a bug when you're playing co-op that if you are not the host and you play through a mission and a cutscene triggers, you get the pleasure of looking at one still frame from the cutscene. You get the audio, but you only get to see that one frame. So I'm sitting there as the host watching this cutscene in all of its glory, and or like 4 or 5 different cutscenes rather, and you're just sitting there like kind of yesing me to death because you're just looking at a black screen or like just an image of Chief or whatever it is.
Not even a black screen. The black screen, it would be like, okay, whatever. But no, they show me the first frame of the cutscene, and the subtitles still function. So the subtitles would update just fine. The cutscene, no good.
So the biggest, those were what we experienced, right? The game didn't run like super smooth or anything like that. I personally had to tweak a couple settings to get it to run the way that I wanted to.
I got a frame drop or two. My major problems were with things like audio. Just certain things would like break the audio where like I would get like popping and crackling. It happened as
I wasn't getting that
deeper and deeper into the campaign. So
but what I was getting was a lot of pop-in that was very close to my player character, which was very weird. I noticed that a lot. There was a little bit of screen tearing.
I got weird nothing... pop out. Where like we would kill an enemy and they would just vanish without any kind of effect.
Yeah. So there was a variety of performance issues. What boggles my mind the most, honestly, is the fact that we took like a pretty healthy. It wasn't 2 weeks. It was what, 1 week between us first playing it and then completing it, or was it 2?
I think it was 2 weeks because we had a lot of things going on in between then.
Yeah. So the thing that is driving me crazy most of all is that there was a 2-week gap in between the launch of the game and when we actually finished it, and every single problem that we had on that first week was still there on the second week. That is unacceptable in 2026. Like, that is just unacceptable. Especially for me as like a PC player, I had to reset my key bindings like literally 5 different times. Each time I booted the game up, and if I had to make any kind of a change to my resolution, I had to quit the game, change my resolution, load the game back up, change my key bindings, and then I was good to go. With you, it was the weird audio issues, a handful of visual stuff, and then that god-awful cutscene bug. I'm getting exacerbated talking about this because it's infuriating to me.
Yeah.
I have never played a game in recent memory with this level of technical issues. Maybe Cyberpunk when it first came out, but that was, way worse than this. But
yeah, I think a good way to kind of summarize the Halo issues. There are a lot of amateurish, weird technical issues that aren't like, it's not like, oh, you can forgive for this or that or the other, but like when you put it in the frame of remaking Halo 1, that's, you're probably gonna immediately go, no, it is, but I say it's borderline unacceptable.
Yeah, no, that's my point exactly. It's just unacceptable the way that it. See, if you're saying it's borderline unacceptable, I think between the two of us, the sum total of our issues that we were having, it's just unacceptable. Like I don't know how else to put it, because the moment we were done with the game, I skipped the credits, I quit out of the game, and I uninstalled it from my Xbox app. I was done. I was having none of it. I don't plan on ever touching this game again. The Halo trilogy, Halo 1 through 3, are some of my favorite games of all time. Probably in my top 10 somewhere. And then for Microsoft to take this IP and do what they did between the Master Chief Collection, which launched in a horrific state, and now this, really, like, I just don't think that anybody at Microsoft is capable of handling this. I probably know what you're going to say, because like I went on a little bit of a rant on Discord a few days ago, and I think I said that Microsoft should just sell Halo to somebody else that's more competent and like just be done with it, because clearly we're not getting the results that we deserve. And your retort was, go ahead.
Well, what was my retort then? Because I probably have something different to say now.
Then you said something along the lines of like, Microsoft shouldn't sell it off. They just need to find new people to develop. Like 343 is the wrong fit, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Microsoft should just get rid of the IP entirely. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the gist of it.
That is pretty much my thought process. There are rumors that they're eyeing Activision and Sledgehammer to potentially do a project. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But my whole point is, you can't have a franchise like Halo in the wind at all. Like that needs to be moored. There needs to be a foundation there, because that is, Phil Spencer famously said, if we lose our way with Halo, we lose our way with Xbox. I'm inclined to agree, just because if you can't manage that correctly, how can I trust you to manage other things? But that leads to the point that I was going to say before, is that this Halo remake was pitched in not necessarily in the most direct way, but in an implied way. It was pitched as, it's the kind of remake where it was supposed to show that this new rebranded Halo Studios can right the ship with Halo, and we're going to do so on an engine that we're all like on board with and we can all understand, right? That's pretty much how it was pitched when they announced that they were moving to Unreal, remember?
What's that meme? So that was a fucking lie.
Well, yeah, but to my end on this is, I look at remakes in general, but I'm looking at Campaign Evolved, right? When remakes are done, typically, ignoring the like justification of like, this is why we're remaking the game, right? Ignoring that, looking at the development side of things, there are two different development setups. It's either the original team and the original creators saying, we want to do more with our original ideas and do things that we might not have been able to do before, or change things a certain way, right?
Yeah.
The alternative way is much more like frustrating, and it's typically like, yeah, we could probably make money on this, so we're going to give it to new parts of the team to kind of cut their teeth on development. Like, that happens with a lot of remakes, more than you'd expect, where if you look at the development and you look at like who's actually behind it, it's normally used as a, hey, you're coming up in the company, we're going to trust you with this project to see if you're up to snuff, and hopefully this kind of gives you an idea. Like, the best example I can give, just because it's fresh in my mind, is the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. Everybody involved with that was fairly new. Between both Capcom and Neobards, everybody there was like fairly new or up and coming, or like it was almost like a step in a certain direction for them to take on more responsibilities with both companies. Ultimately, they failed, and a lot of those people went on to not do anything. But the reason I bring this up is because when we look at Halo Campaign Evolved, again, it's like, okay, this is the first Halo on a new engine, they gotta nail it, and it's also a remake that shows that they understand what's going on with Halo. And I think it's a failure on both fronts because, one, the Halo itself, like, it has all those issues we mentioned before, right? Just technically, which means there's something going on. There's rumors that the development was troubled. So that's a failure right there. Clearly, you don't have the staff at the ready. There's no cohesive development structure. That's one. Two, immediately after the game launched, there were a smattering of layoffs, and it was revealed that yet again, much like Halo Infinite, they were using a high amount of contract workers whose contracts were not renewed, they expired, and they are no longer with the team. To which, all of this, I have to say, what was the fucking point of this remake? If behind the scenes it wasn't developed properly, the results were very questionable. There's a lot of small things that we could do a whole podcast episode about, like things like AI differences, weapon balancing differences, small story script changes that kind of reinforce things that come in later books that people aren't necessarily on board with. Casting choices for people that needed to be replaced that shows that they're not up to snuff. There's just so many small things we could talk about, but in general, I could just say overall it was a failure. And ultimately, what I said to you is that their main goal, what it appears to be, was just to get the IP out to as many people as possible, which is why they added things like regenerative health, sprinting. It's why normal is easier than any normal in any Halo has ever been. It's why you can sprint through the entire game. We literally
sat at one of the checkpoints in the game and let the Sentinels kill all the Flood. I mean, it took a little while, but the game basically played itself, and we moved right along.
Yeah, it's also why the default weapon, the assault rifle, is as strong as it is. Like we talked about, it's good at every range. It invalidates most of the weapons, which is point of Halo. Is you're supposed to be swapping weapons, find your favorites, manage them to a certain degree. And ultimately, we can say it's a disappointment. I just think it was a misfire from all of the goals I could see, from underneath the hood to who's going to buy it to is it a good remake. I think it's a failure on all fronts, and like all remakes tend to do, it has accrued its own crowd of people around it that'll defend it to the death. So now there's a point of contention within your potential audience and fan base, because you now have these people that, I'm not going to say they're the majority of people, but there is a loud group of people out there that will defend this version of Halo 1 to the death for stupid reasons, with stupid arguments, and in very aggressive vocal fashion, just splintering your potential fan base further down the line.
Yeah, disappointing is probably the only word that I could really use to describe it, that it's not being crass or just straight up mean. Almost everything about the game I did not care for. I'm trying to think of one positive thing that I could realistically say, but they got the shield recharge noise right. They did that right. Beyond that, nothing in the game was really that enjoyable from a fan that was been playing the game since it came out. So I don't know, man. The Halo Studios is obviously creatively bankrupt just based off of those 4 prologue missions. And they also can't handle a remake either, because they were, like you said, obviously learning how to use Unreal while making a remake of one of the most beloved games of all time. So, I don't know, man. The whole situation is shitty. I just wanted to get through it yesterday. I mean, I was just running through everything. I just didn't even care anymore. That's really about it. I don't really want to talk about this anymore, unless you got something else to add.
No, I mean, that's behind us. Between our initial, our close to launch conversations about it, our first impressions, and now this, I think we've said all there is to say about Halo, short of writing a script or sitting down and having a conversation about Halo Campaign Evolved, or tagging in some people who, love Halo like us, but also maybe more of an expert. Because I told you the entire time when I was playing it, I was, I showed some of it to my buddies, I talked to them about it, and he's a lot more passionate. He's probably the most passionate Halo fan I know, and he had a lot to say throughout about the little intricate differences. Not in a fervent, everything's wrong kind of way. He approached it in a very a shockingly calm manner, but he went over some of the differences with me, and like there's a lot to say about that when you compare it to the original. I might end up doing something on it because I like doing those little redo review videos where I compare versions, but as for right now, I've got nothing to say about it.
Yep.
We said all we can.
That is true. All right, moving on. We have an update this week, Anthony. What is today's update?
Today's update is about quickly becoming one of your favorite topics, Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yeah, my favorite topic to rage bait. All right, what's the update? I know what it is, but tell the people.
So there's a handful of things. There's been a lot of numbers, a lot of rumors going around. Apparently, when it comes to the pre-orders, there's a few things. There are 2 things that came out, or 2 things that are rumored or teased. A couple things. I say 2, but it's really 3 if you consider some of the comments from everyone's favorite CEO. What's his name? Zelnick. I always fuck up his name.
Yeah, Strauss Zelnick.
Strauss Zelnick. That's right.
Yep.
He had something to say. Firstly, I guess I should lead with that, is because it's the only concrete thing we have. Is he said that they would not be showing pre-order numbers because it could be misleading in some way. Now, when I heard that, Dan, I was like surprised, because typically that sounds like corporate speak. Like, how we talk about how when sales numbers aren't getting thrown around, it's like, oh, it's players or units shipped or all that kind of stuff. Yeah. This is on the same level of that, in my opinion, where it's just like, I'm not gonna even pretend to say like, oh, the numbers are disappointing, but I think it's not as high as they would like. I'm sure the numbers are incredibly high, that being said, but I'm
right. Well, it's
a very
relative.
Yeah, it's a very volatile number, whatever it is, because there's no reason they would withhold it unless it was... If it was anything, it would need to be... If it was a roaring success, they would be shouting those numbers from the high heavens, is basically what I'm saying. But it's either there's some kind of swing in there, like maybe they're concerned there's going to be cancellations or switch-ups near the release window, or they're just not as high as they would expect, and they think it would affect their stock prices. That's what that translates to me.
Okay.
Now, the other rumors we heard that apparently the pre-orders alone would be enough to make up the entire budget of the game, which I find that's insane. I don't believe that, but that's the rumor that's going around. That would be fucking catastrophic if that's true. That would be like a number I can't even fathom in my head just sitting here, because you're telling me that like there are nearly 30 million copies of this being pre-ordered. But the flip side of that is the other rumor we have is that 89% of all Grand Theft Auto 6 pre-orders are allegedly the $100 Ultimate Edition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I believe that figure for what it's worth. I think that the people that are already like on board to pay whatever amount of money for GTA 6, I think they were always going to get that Ultimate Edition so that it would come with everything, that the game should ship with at base level. I personally believe that 89% figure.
I mean, I find it a little high. I'd be willing to believe it's definitely more than half. I don't know. That just seems like such a high number, given that it really... Like, I know it comes with everything, but the aspect that we're talking fully digital goods, where it's like all digital benefits, and it's like, if you are aware enough to know it is the quote complete version of the game, I feel like that would be more off-putting than have you, going all in on it.
What's the $80 edition called? Is it just GTA 6?
Standard.
Or does it have
standard?
Oh, right. Okay. So standard versus ultimate. So just from a marketing perspective, any average person that hears those two things will automatically make the association with the ultimate edition that, oh, this is going to come with everything, versus the standard with like, okay, what is it going to be missing?
No, I get that, but like the angle of it being like, oh, it includes single player content that I otherwise wouldn't get. Like, I know people are familiar with digital goods that you get little bonuses from the ultimate. There's all to say it, because I don't want to. I believe that it's a high number. Like, I would be closer to like 60% to 70%. Like, I would immediately find that believable. 89, I'm incredibly skeptical about. I think that's much too high of a number for me to believe entirely.
Well, that's fair. I mean, Now you're making me doubt myself a little bit. No, I think 89 is probably pretty goddamn close, if not on right on track for how many people actually pre-order the Ultimate Edition. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I actually think that the whole GTA 6 situation as it is right now is actually pretty devastating for video games overall, for a multitude of reasons, but we can get into that later. I don't know, man. I just trying to figure out like how to say this. The game, I think, will eventually collapse under its own weight, if that makes sense. I don't think anything could live up to the level of hype that this game has right now.
I forget exactly what I said, because when GTA 6 wasn't even announced yet, we talked a fair bit about it, because obviously the hype has been snowballing for quite some time. I think that my guess remains that it won't be anything revolutionary, and that it cannot fall below decent, like just from an objective standpoint. Whether that means it would be entertaining to us if it was put in front of us to play it, I couldn't say, because obviously we have our opinions on where the Rockstar formula has kind of gone, and that's kind of where my next thing is, like, when it comes out, it is going to be another iteration of the same formula that Rockstar has technically used for all of their games since 2008. The exception being Max Payne 3. Everything else has used some variation of the formula started with Grand Theft Auto 3 and expanded on a little bit with Grand Theft Auto 4. Everything, like, it's just a matter of what feature set it has. Like, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas introduced vehicle customization, and then 4 didn't have it, and then 5 brought it back. Is it going to have vehicle customization? My guess is probably yes. But it's like shit like that. Like, when the gameplay drops, which is allegedly another rumor, is that it's going to be 3 separate episodes on Netflix for a total of like an hour. I mean, hey, like, listen, I'm down
just
for
retarded.
It's so funny, like, I'd be saying, like, oh my god, they're going to do a whole breakdown, that's awesome, but then they did it in the most asinine way possible with Netflix exclusivity, so it's like, I can't even give them that.
Like, I have such a bad taste in my mouth from that Netflix deal, even if it is on a 6-hour exclusivity deal. I have such a bad taste in my mouth just from the business practice of it. Like, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll continue to say it. They're paywalling a fucking trailer. Like, I know it's 3 episodes, they're all going to be roughly 25 to 29 minutes a pop, I think. But effectively, like, mechanically speaking, it is just a trailer at the end of the day. And the only reason why this is happening...
gameplay breakdown. Like that used to just happen,
Right. So, like a press conference that we would watch for Xbox or PlayStation or something.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But there was never, ever in the history of video games was there an exclusivity deal like this, let alone for one game, not like an entire suite of games or a brand or something. Take-Two overdid it with me. Like, they have shoved it in my face to the point where, like, I don't even want to look at it anymore. I am so past the point of caring.
Yeah, and really just, like, what this realistically leads to is, like, again, like, what they're going to end up showing, there is no way that it's innovative in a meaningful mechanical way. I'm willing to believe that they polished the hell out of the world and, in a lot of cases, how the player can interact with them. But if they were to demonstrate something in that 60 minutes that is revolutionary in some way, I would be completely stunned. I just don't see it happening. It's just not possible. Like, everybody, like, I've seen so many people say it's like, oh, guys, we are just 100 days away from one of the most from our first look at one of the most ambitious games ever made. Which is like, first, you're basing that off of nothing. Second, this series has not been ambitious since what year did Grand Theft Auto
3?
GTA 3 was the most ambitious
the
franchise. Exactly. It's the most ambitious the franchise ever was, because it was part of that revolutionary, we're going 2D to 3D. And ever since then, they refined it a little. It's like Grand Theft Auto 3 was was decent. I kind of missed the boat on that, but it was, it was rudimentary first time, but it's also groundbreaking. Wow. Yeah, my Grand Theft Auto experience started with Vice City. That's the first one I had. And I remember a family friend had it, and I was mystified by it a little bit, because I think Liberty City is a really cool location, but it looks its best in like that 3D era of Grand Theft Auto. Don't get me wrong, I love 4. I really do love 4. But like, I think there's just a certain weird, not mystic way about it, but just the way that it is in my memories and how I experienced it as a kid. It's like, I get like whiffs of that revolutionariness when I look at Grand Theft Auto 3, even if I don't fully appreciate it.
Yeah,
that sounds weird.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, anyway. I felt pretty much exactly where, what you're saying. I don't think it's going to be anything revolutionary. It's not even ambitious. I mean, it's just going to be gigantic. Like, there's a difference between big and ambitious. I mean, like, I am trying to think of what they could actually do to do something quote unquote revolutionary. The only thing that is really coming to me right now in the moment is if, like, you can walk into any building in Vice City and, like, there's no loading screens, everything's beautifully detailed, like, you can go onto multiple floors, something like that, because that was always the hope. Yeah, I know. That was always the hope ever since GTA 3 came out, and then they moved over. They had the sequel in GTA 4, and, like, the environment was getting more and more detailed, but, like, it was still a lot of window dressing. I mean, it's still fun, don't get me wrong, but, they can only do so much with an open world, especially for the size that they make it.
I view that kind of thing, like, walk into any building possible, I view that as the same as, like substance over style and style over substance, where it's just like there's been so many things over the last however many years where they're just like, you need to have this for the next game, and it's almost like that creeping plateau that you can never quite get over, like with graphics and stuff like that. It's just like,
the only other thing that's actually just hitting me right now, if they manage to do something like this, and I'll get into it like in a couple seconds, that would really knock my socks off and drop everything that I've been saying about the game and go out and actually buy it, is if they did something along the lines of mastering every trade. Like, obviously you've heard the expression, jack of all trades, master of none, right? If they happen to make GTA 6 so that it is an outstanding third-person shooter, an outstanding driving game, an outstanding, like, flight game with the helicopters or jets or whatever, an outstanding action game in whatever context you want to put that in, an outstanding sim where, like, you can buy up different properties and, like, manage them just like you can in GTA Online, and, like, keep on going down the list. If they manage to do something like that, I will take back everything that I've been saying.
That would be an interesting way to look at it, because one of the appeals of Grand Theft Auto, and it's kind of grown as other genres have shrunk, is that, like, it does allow you, regardless of to what degree they take it, like, having those different functions within Grand Theft Auto, like the driving and the shooting and the flying, as you described it, just to simplify it. It's like, if I want to play a good driving game, what are my options, really? I mean, I actually really like the driving in Grand Theft Auto 5 and Vice City and San Andreas and even 4. I know a lot of people have an issue with the driving in 4, but driving in Grand Theft Auto, as the name would imply, is always one of the, the highlights of them, and there's, like, no racing games now. So imagine, if you will, in this hypothetical that you just posed, it's like, you have the cinematic story, and that's going to be their focus, but it's like, now there's, like, individual branches, almost like I look at it almost like Oblivion, or like an Elder Scrolls game where there's different guilds you can go out and do, but instead of guilds, it's like there's whole branches of, like, racing around the city and collecting the cars and doing, and going to shooting ranges and competitions, or, doing different operations and missions and all these different things. Like, I could see that. That would push it closer to ambitious. But even then, that would just be content, because right now, as it stands to me, the boldest thing about Grand Theft Auto 6 is its budget. I'm willing to concede that, unlike everybody else who's, like, hyping the game up no matter what ends up being shown, is like, I'm willing to concede, and we've talked about it before, like, we haven't seen it yet. So who knows? Maybe the 60 minutes will be chock full of amazing new things, but as it stands right now, I think it's going to be a little bit of talking, like something like, in Grand Theft Auto 6, you take on the role of of Jason. It's Jason, right? It's Jason
Yeah, Jason
and
something.
Lucia. Jason. It's Jason Duval and Lucia. Forgot her last name, but it's the two of them. It's like in Grand Theft Auto 6, you take on the role of Jason and Lucia, recently released convicts who are trying to set their lives straight. And then it'll play like 30 seconds of like just scenes from the game to, with the music swelling in the background. It's like,
yeah, that'll be a huge miss.
At the beginning of the game, they're trying to get to straighten out their ways and get away from a life of crime, and then music into like scene we haven't seen before that kind of kicks off the story, shit like that. It's going to be a little bit of lofty, for lack of a better term, dialogue. I know it's just a presenter showing it. It's going to be lofty dialogue describing, setting the stage, and that'll take up about, I don't know, like 3 minutes across the board, and then like 30 seconds of accompanying gameplay swell to go along with that. These things are going to be fucking bloated. It's not going to be like, we might see one full mission, and that's why like some of this is very long, because one full mission, that's 8 minutes easy. That's an easy way to fluff out. Maybe even longer than that, 15 minutes, So we'll see what happens. I'm being kind of dour on this. I just don't, I think it's going to be a new Grand Theft Auto. I don't think, based on everything that they've done around everything, where it's just like, oh, we can get away with charging 100 for a game. Oh, we can get away with, doing exclusivity deals on our gameplay showcases and this, that, and the other. Why would they not try to get away with everything they can in the game proper?
Right. And this is going back to my point where I said that like everything surrounding GTA 6 is really just a net negative for the entire gaming industry, because they're actively setting this very dangerous precedent every move that they make with this game, based solely off of the fact that it is as big as it is, and people are hyping it up as much as they are, and they're leaning into that like full tilt. And my concern is that if another publisher or game company in the future has another property that doesn't necessarily have to be on the same size and scope as GTA, but if they have something that is like insanely popular, what's to stop them from doing the same shit with that game that then Take-Two is doing with GTA? That is my biggest concern surrounding this property right now overall, is the fact that it's creating such a dangerous precedent moving forward, as if the gaming industry wasn't already like eating itself to death. I think this is just like a bad way to move forward.
Yeah, just because it's in my mind recently, like regardless of whether it holds as like something that we need to worry about going forward, like let's say GTA just kind of locks these new standards in place, I can very easily see, like for example, I could see Cyberpunk 2 being $100. I could see them trying to get away with that, because they a lot of the things we talked about to a lighter extent apply to Cyberpunk 2077, where it has a massive following that swears by it, where it was described from its announcement in 2012 as a highly ambitious, massive world. Like you talked about, how you talked about, like, the only way I could see Grand Theft Auto 6, one of the things they could pitch is you can go inside any building. That was something that was talked about in the development of Cyberpunk 2077. Like, that's the kind, like, there are parallels there. So it's like there are more than a few properties and developers I could see easily saying, like, well, we're in the big boys club too, so we're going to charge X amount of dollars. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's deeply concerning to me, truly, for my favorite hobby. And I don't like the direction that it's going, but there's nothing that we could do except from what we're literally doing right now, and to like boycott the game, which I don't plan on buying it unless it really does knock my socks off, which I just can't see it doing.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
Yeah, so that's the update this week with GTA 6. Let's move on. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, so go over this your Marvel Tokon launch, and then I'm going to knock out some of the small stuff. Coolio.
So, Dan, Marvel Tokon launched, and didn't go so great. at least on the PC, which is what everyone keeps telling me is the future whenever games are majorly successful on them. But the game came out. It still has the performance hangups, still has several instances of the PlayStation SD key running in the background, still has the weird performance hangups, still has aggressive anti-cheat. Only for some reason it launched in a slightly worse state. It might just be from the larger sample size, but I was seeing some crazy performance issues that we didn't experience when we tried playing it. And I just got to say, I'm flabbergasted. I'm stunned, right?
Okay.
Because, you know, way back when I was explaining to you how all the FGC guys were screaming how we were so back because of all these games coming out, you know, I had my guesses. I knew what had the biggest draw. I knew what group liked what. I had assumptions because of how Marvel is doing a bit of a small turnaround in quality. I had all these different ideas where the carryover would come from. And I thought for sure that this game would be the most directly financially successful of all the We're So Back games. And
Right.
saying that, maybe it is, but it fell well below where I thought it was going to end up. It did not, in the first week, maybe, who knows, maybe by the end of the month it will be better, but in the first week, it did not break 500,000 copies. It's below
Yikes.
500,000. That is insane to me. Like, there's a whole lot of argument. I'm gonna get it out of the way now. There's a whole argument when fighting games do well, the community and people around it say it's proof that fighting games aren't niche. When fighting games don't sell as well as other normal games, it's people just retreat and say fighting games are niche. Fighting games are not as niche as they used to be. They're not as big as they necessarily were in the 90s, but for a Marvel brand video game that has a lot of people pretending it's something it's not, because like I said, a lot of people just they're saying this is the leading up to this, they said it's both the successor to Marvel vs. Capcom and Dragon Ball Fighters. You know, it
Nobody
had all
liked
the ground,
that.
yeah, it had all the groundswell possible, and it came up this short. And I'm gonna do some comparisons to kind of, you know, put all this in context, right? I'm going to play around with the numbers a bit, and you got to remember all these guys, they play it fast and loose with the units shipped versus players played and all that kind of stuff. You know, the sales are a bit harder to dig up, especially the older ones. I'm gonna be doing a lot of rounding, and I'm going to give a lot of grace here. So if they said units shipped, I'm just going to use that as the metric because that's the metrics they were proud to do, right?
All right.
So Street Fighter 6, the king of fighting games, right?
Yes.
Day one, it moved somewhere between 500 and 70,000 units. Within the first week, it moved 1 million units, and by the end of the first month, it was nearing 2 million units. Right. Tekken 8, day one sold over 1 million. Within the first week, it was moving towards 500,000, and by the time the first month was over, it sold about 2 million. Dragon Ball Fighters broke 2 million the first week. You know, I would say, like, obviously Dragon Ball does a lot of the heavy lifting there. It was also when Marvel vs. Capcom was essentially dead at that time. So Marvel vs. Capcom 3, this is a little harder to track because it is an older game at this point. Within the first month, it shipped around 2 million units, right? And then more closer to now, the most recent We're So Back game to actually sell something is about 40,000 units with Invincible Versus, but that's like a smaller one, right? I think they ended up landing somewhere around 200,000, so within striking distance of Marvel Tokon, right? And I just gotta say, like, I'm gonna bring this up again because I've brought it up before. Guilty Gear Strive.
Yeah.
When Guilty Gear Strive launched, it hit within the first month. It hit around 500,000 units. They said units shipped. I'm not gonna harp on, you know, how bullshit that term is, but that's the number they're touting. They're touting, right? Around 500,000 units. And I look at that and I say, you know, Arxis was a known quantity in the fighting game space, but they were essentially in a bit of a recognition growth spurt because of that. They had just gotten a decent amount of swell with Dragon Ball Fighters, and I just told you about how massive those numbers were, right? The lockdowns had started the season beforehand. The marketing was hitting all the right spots, and it basically elevated Arxis to this new level where everybody was talking about them. So to have this game do as poorly, or like nearly as poorly as like their Guilty Gear Strive with like minimal expectations, I'm flabbergasted, and that the reason that these numbers are so much worse is because it is the Marvel property. Again, it's a tag fighter which has everyone on board. Everyone's talking about it like it's Marvel versus Capcom Reborn or everything like that. And it's worse because ArcSys had like 13 support studios or some ridiculous number like that. Sony personally contracted them to make this game, and it fell way short of what I would imagine their expectations are. It's dreadful. And more to the point, I could see some of the console numbers, like fighting games have pretty bad legs. Unless there's like major content drops. I don't know what they could add to a Marvel game to really get butts in the seats, because most of the main names are there right now. But fighting games have pretty bad legs. Like I don't see like them pulling ballots out unless they completely retrofit the game or some kind of major word of mouth happens. I just don't see it happening. I could see. I was personally expecting them to land somewhere at 1 million. I expected them to break 1 million before the month was over. I don't know if that's going to happen. I was expecting, I guess, maybe 1 million closer to like the first week, and that clearly hasn't happened, right?
Okay.
Now, as it stands, most of the hype men are currently split. They can't decide whether to praise the game for all the things, because that's their job. Their job is to hype up the games no matter what and grow the fighting game community no matter what, blah, 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 blah. And they can't decide between doing that or actually complaining about the game, because most of them are just like, I can't play with crossplay on. I had to abandon the PC port to play on the PlayStation 5. It's kind of lagging on the PlayStation 5 too. This, that, the other. They can't decide what to go with. So the reaction has been, not so great. I saw a handful of comments online that kind of can be culminated and summarized in this one comment I saw, right? I saw someone say, Sony not only hasn't learned any lesson from previous PC releases, they're getting worse. PC players ain't console players. Sony, they got certain standards and they can't be coerced into settling for garbage. It was way too easy to refund shit on Steam, and you think you can still get away with this. That's basically what the comment said, right? To which I had to say the following. First things first, I am of the mind that all of these things are bullshit. Power to this guy and everyone calling Sony and ArcSys out. Never stop doing that. Second, PC players frequently settle for garbage. I say this not to shit on people, but to remind everyone that the reason that companies get away with all this shit is because
it happens.
Exactly. Well, because it happens. But the reason that companies get away with these things and all the different practices that make the medium and hobby go to shit is because it's gone more and more mainstream, which means you are left with more people who don't care about who don't care about video games much more than the flashing colors in front of them, and they more than often they sort with corporations over their fellow players, And I bring this up again because PC gaming has gotten that in lower but still notable numbers. I mentioned at the beginning, it's just like people say PC gaming is the place to be right now. A lot of people say that, and whether that's right or wrong, it comes with the baggage of more normies, so to speak, playing on the PC, which means you have more people settling for garbage, which is why this game is not going to go the Helldivers route. You're not going to see all the proprietary stuff, the Sony login, the SDK, all that stuff in the background is going to remain, and it's likely going to continue. It'll probably get better. They put out some hot fixes, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere reasonable. I think a lot of these problems are here to stay from the get-go. And regardless of whether it stays or not, I think the game on PC doesn't recover. Like, I can't see them recovering because fighting games, Dan, tend to have a pretty steep drop-off very early on, right?
Okay.
You basically you sell a decent amount of numbers, and then like a fourth of that stays behind and plays until EOL, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. And again, I'm going to be rounding here, but I'm going to give you a few examples, right? Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 had a very successful first month. Like I mentioned before, both of them broke 1 million. And as things progressed, Street Fighter 6, it took 4 months for them to lose 75% of their concurrent players, right? It ranges from around 18 to 21,000. Peaks of new content actually send them, they skyrocket. They go from like 50 to 60 or even 70,000. Street Fighter is the only game I'm talking about today that has broken and gotten a new peak when new content has dropped, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tekken 8 took them about 2 to 3 months, and when it's healthy, it floats around 8,000 to 14,000. After its major drop, it's closer to 4,000 to 6,000, right? Which you're still in the ballpark. Like 5,000 is where you don't want to drop below. Not saying it's dead if it goes below that, but it's, you can kind of gauge these things. New content tends to jolt it up to about 12. So generally, like at the absolute peak, 2 to 4 months, if you have a really good game with really good jolts with new content. Marvel Tokon saw that same drop in a week and a half. It debuted, I think its peak was somewhere around 20,000. Its average it was like closer to 22,000, I think. Maybe 21,000. I don't know, I don't have the exact number, but it has a very limp peak, and now it like struggles to get to 6,000 players on a daily basis.
So do you see them pulling the plug on this?
There are too many unknowns. The reason I say that is because obviously console numbers is still kind of murky how we get there, but the console data that we do have is that a lot of the players that purchased on console, there was a lot of overlap with Marvel games proper, like things like the Insomniac Spider-Man games, where it's like over 50% in some cases, right? And I don't see the players who live and die by adventure games or, open world games like Spider-Man having much overlap with Marvel Tokon. I do think contractually between Sony and Marvel, I don't see it dying, especially with the, as you've heard me say before, fighting games have kind of settled into this very low budget, we're going to do 4 characters a year kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that's what Tokon's doing. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 characters. I'm pretty sure it's 4 characters here, which is very funny for a tag fighter. You should be releasing whatever team size you have should be updating like every 3 to 4 months, right?
Okay.
But anyway, no, I don't see them pulling the plug on this. I do think it is saved purely from the fact that Sony and Marvel put money into it, and the fact that fighting games have settled into a very low budget groove. I do think there are a lot of people up the chain who are disappointed, but it's not like a crippling pull the plug on the game, also, people need to get fired kind of thing. It's just not that low. But it is, in the scope of fighting games, shocking is the best way I can put this. Like I said, like the crown was all but handed to them. It was made by a developer who was forced into everybody's face. They had a legacy beforehand, but it was like they got a new reputational growth spurt because of the lockdowns. Guilty Gear Strive, for whatever I have to say about it, it's very friendly to casuals and newbies alike. It had its own growth spurt going on there. It's to the point where word of mouth with Arxis is very much, oh man, you got to get the new Arxis fighter. It's before Marvel Tokon was announced, people were just like, oh, Capcom should just outsource to Arxis for how it looks, or like Sega should make a fighting game and they should outsource it to Arxis. Like they have enough swell where people are giving them the Bloober Team treatment, where it's just like Bloober Team should make the next Silent Hill. It's like it's that same level. So to have all that fall well beneath what I expected. I was expecting, like I said, 1 million, maybe 1 million, 1.2 million, something like that, right? To have it fall that low and to basically kill their prospects on PC, I'm just stunned. It was a disastrous launch, and it's also an example of, like, again, some of the things we talk about with Sony, where it's just like a lot of this stuff is self-inflicted on the PC, with like Sony just the Sony weight tied around their necks, essentially. That causes that's where you get the stupid shit like the anti-cheat, the multiple instances of Sony SDK, the login requirements. That's another thing that didn't help sales. It had, remember when we were talking about, like, oh, Helldivers wouldn't be accessible in certain countries, they can't sell certain Sony games in certain countries, right? Mm-hmm. This game had all those same issues, but, and I know this is going to sound shocking as someone who has dealt with the Helldivers community, the Helldivers community somehow had better scruples than a community that claims to have been born and raised in the late 90s. Like this powerful, multi-decade community.
It seems that like the fighting game community like harvests all the fucking sickos from everything that you've told me.
Pretty much.
I don't know why or how, but it just seems that all the fucking weirdos out there are perverts or, insert adjective here. They all flock to fighting games for whatever reason. Yeah. With the whole Helldivers thing, it's just like the boys just want to kill some bugs. Like, why are you doing this?
Well, I will reiterate that the reason that the fighting game community is saddled with whole you mentioned like the pervert and weirdo angle, which is a huge problem. It's not necessarily completely relevant to Tokon. We got to let a few tournaments happen first and let the sickos actually do things to their victims before we can talk about that. But more importantly, like the fighting game community doesn't really have any kind of standards. I kind of mentioned like in the mid 2010s, it was growth at any cost. You got to get the bag. And that's how you end up with so many, like, people, they don't care about the community. They don't care about, you know, where they came from. They consume whatever's in front of them. They very rarely will take a stand, and when they do, it is on very easy and hard to ignore topics. And that's that. And so Marvel Tokon never really had a chance in hell in scaring the proprietary Sony stuff off of there, like Helldivers did, despite being in a very similar situation. Just because of that alone. But overall, the launch has been a bit of a disaster. This is, like I said, this is kind of the end of the line of the we're so back moments, short of new releases. And speaking on that, I'm just, like, I'm very shocked about how Tokon launched, but I'm even more shocked that none of them really mustered anything. I think the overall winning, like, I can't even say, like, I would say, like, oh, people really love that Avatar fighting game, right? I would say that. But the guy that made Skullgirls, which everybody has a problem with, turns out he was on the development team, so now the fighting game community can't even properly enjoy it because they're just like, oh, there's a racist guy who's behind the scene. That's a whole other can of worms that I might talk about one day, but not today. And it's just like, two or three of the games are dead. One has an extremely underwhelming launch. Another one is very divisive. It's just a fucking mess, Dan. And the one that I said, like, you know, regardless of my personal position and everything like that, the one I said, like, this is the one that everyone's going to rally behind and try and make it a thing, fell flat on its fucking face. So that was the Marvel Tokon launch.
Okay, perfect. I was about to tell you to wrap it up, actually.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, because usually when you go off on your fighting game rants, like, I obviously I pay attention, but, like, I have so little to offer as far as, like, input goes. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, that's not my world.
I get you.
Still relevant, but it's just not my world. All right, I'm gonna rapid fire some smaller stuff, and then we'll move on to the next bigger story. All right, the Modern Warfare 4 beta that is coming out in, I think, like a week from today or something. This is easily and by far the largest beta for Call of Duty that we have ever had since they started doing betas. And that says one big thing to me, especially because, let me back up a second. So obviously the beta is going to include the multiplayer mode. They are also including a new Warzone map, which if you're into that, that's pretty cool. They're also allowing anybody that has access to the beta to play one campaign mission. So this tells me two main things. Number one, they heard the reception to the god awful campaign that was Modern Warfare 3. That was embarrassing, honestly. It was so bad. They did my boy Soap dirty, and it's unacceptable. Number two, to me, this says that Infinity Ward has an immense amount of confidence in Modern Warfare 4 as a product, and that is very reassuring to me. Or it's very, it's very reassuring to me. I know I've said this in the past, but a lot of the original developers behind the Call of Duty name, as far as, like, what everybody knows, like, everybody knows COD today because of these handful of individuals that came back for Modern Warfare 2019. They did Modern Warfare 2, and now they are doing Modern Warfare 4. So I've said this over and over again, but, like, I have maybe not complete faith, but I have, like, a large chunk of faith in the Infinity Ward that is currently developing this year's Call of Duty game. The multiplayer, I mean, it looks like Modern Warfare. There's really nothing else you could say about that. It's really the fact that they are allowing you to play the campaign mission.
Yes.
So, yeah, that I am definitely looking forward to the beta. I haven't pre-ordered it yet. I'm going to have to by next week because I do want to play it. And so that's pretty cool. It shows a lot of confidence in what Infinity Ward is creating, which we don't see enough in today's day and age. The Nvidia AI budget cuts. Boy, oh boy, does this make me giddy. It's not like anything crazy, but Nvidia cut their data center budget by, God, what was it? It was like several $1 billion. It was a big chunk.
It was rather high. It was it went from 250 billion to 120 billion.
250, that's a lot of fucking money. Oh my god. Oh my god. And they're still in the billions. Like, I can't even wrap my head around how much money $1 billion, like 1 billion, just one of the billions, just one of them. I can't wrap my head around that sum of money. I couldn't spend that in my lifetime if I tried. And the fact that they are spending in the hundreds of billions on data centers to make nothing good, mind you, nothing good comes out of these data centers almost ever. I don't know one example off the top of my head that was a positive impact of a data center, or at least of like one of these AI-driven data centers. So the fact that they're cutting costs or cutting the budget is a big thumbs up for me. Good. Not going to say good job because no, but it is a good thing that they are cutting the budget for these data centers. I'm going to go over one last small bit of news because this is what I actually am familiar with. The other two things that looks like it's in your realm. Twitch AI training. So it recently came out that if you broadcast on Twitch and you have a stream and everything, people come to see you and whatnot, they would automatically enable a toggle switch that would allow Twitch to use whatever AI that it has to use your stream to train its AI model. And it was automatically opted in. You had to go out of your way to opt out of it. And the reason for that is because one of the Twitch officials, I don't remember who exactly he was. I could probably find it if you want to just give me a second. Where did I post this? It's not in the news channel. Unless I'm just missing it.
I don't think you posted a link. I think you just posted in bold Twitch AI.
Right? Oh, yes, you're right. Okay, so point being, he was an executive for Twitch. He basically said that, and this is almost verbatim, that it is an opt-out system because if it was an opt-in, nobody would do it.
Yeah.
What does that tell you, Anthony? Huh? What does that fucking tell you? And yet here we are. They're doing it anyway. Those assholes.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows that these are. What I would say is like, AI in general is a hot button topic, whether you're for, against, ambivalent, but the actual act of harvesting data for the models has been pretty much universally contested, more so than the actual topic of AI itself. And now you're tying it together directly with people's privacy. Like, of course, nobody's going to want to actually deal with that. Come on.
Yeah. It's just, it is so heavy-handed and in your face now. Actually, no, it's not in your face because they're apparently actively trying to fucking hide it. But it's still very heavy-handed. Like, nobody wants this shit. No one's life is more enriched because of it. And like this guy said, if it was an opt-in system, nobody would do it. So like that one sentence speaks volumes to me. And like I saw that and I almost like grabbed my wife and was like, "Do you see this? Do you see what they're doing? This is unacceptable. They can't do this. We have to stop." So yeah, I was pretty passionate about that one. So that was the little bit of the small news that we got going on this week. What's going on with Insomniac?
So Daniel, I don't know if you've seen any of the latest showings from Wolverine. Have you?
I saw a very limited amount of the hands-on preview. I didn't really watch it though. It was only a couple minutes.
Yeah. So basically, what happened is there was a preview embargo lifted about halfway through the month. So there's been a decent amount of people, putting out gameplay and stuff like that. It's from the same segments, but you get how that works. And people are kind of just fed up with the formula that Insomniac is presenting. A lot of the tropes, the way things look, like things are. This is kind of like almost like a breaking point for a lot of people, where
Really?
like because
Interesting.
we've talked up and down about how certain parts of game development has become formulaic, how everybody kind of has a different threshold for that, and the different tropes that we kind of roll our eyes out.
Yep.
And this latest smattering is just where it like people are just kind of like fed up. Like every little thing is getting pointed out. Like, oh, there's a segment with Wolverine where you're chasing someone and there's a red trail following him. You know, like the player guidance that's become commonplace for as long as like games have been doing it now. It's just like a AAA thing, like, oh, Wolverine has a trail that's following this person. People don't like that. People are nitpicking there's a segment where Wolverine is running towards a door and he's getting shot at, and you know, as he's
There's going to
running,
be a lot of those segments in the game once it launches. I hate to break it to
Exactly.
those people.
But the whole point is like people are equating that to games and walking simulators where you're just holding forward for an extended period of time, right? And because people are looking at that, people are noticing other things. Like Wolverine is running forward, and also he's randomly gaining EXP for some reason. It's something that pops up on the HUD that shows up, and then, you know, I'm sitting there and I wonder something, because now I'm looking at this as intently as everybody else. I'm just like, he's running as fast as he can. He slides under a door before the door closes, but at the same time he's digging his claws into the ground. I'm like, why is he doing that? I thought he was trying to go fast. So people are getting fed up, and because now other people are making closer inspections, like I did about the whole, like I nitpicked about the claws there. That stuck out to me for some reason because I'm being forced to look at this game. Other people are just like, why is Wolverine holding? Why is he equipped with a plate vest? He has regenerative health. He can heal. He can tank the bullets.
Skeleton.
Yeah, you can basically not kill this guy. Why does he need a bulletproof vest? You know, shit like that. People are commenting on like the pacing and the dialogue. There's a scene where Wolverine jumps out of a helicopter and he flips the person in the helicopter with him off with his claws, and people are just like, what is with this MCU Deadpool level humor? So it's like every little bit of the game is now getting picked apart, because basically everybody's seeing tropes they don't like, from writing to gameplay to the formulaic stuff that we talked about before, and it's just not clicking with enough people. And there's a lot of like these hype men accounts, again, kind of similar to the fighting game community, where people are just like, what did he say? Some guy's just like, you know, why is there so much weird hate around the Wolverine game? And I said something along the lines of like, listen, the game basically needs to be a masterpiece in order to get over the fatigue people have around everything that seems to be going on in this game. We talked a bit about like, the game is violent and bloody and stuff like that, and it's like that keeps coming up as like a thing that I should be looking at instead of everything underneath the game that just doesn't look like different. Somebody was talking about like the stealth segments, like, okay, you got to sneak around as the Wolverine, right? It's like, yeah, he's kind of like a predator character, but then the AI in the game is just doing the same shit every other AAA game has ever done before, where it's just like, all right, we need to protect this perimeter, so everybody fan out and face a wall and face the opposite direction and make sure you're alone and shit like that. So it's basically like, I wouldn't say the game looks terrible, at least, you know, from like the wide point of everybody in the industry talking about it, but it's just like, I don't think it looks good enough to overcome the burden of what has come before it leading to this point. And I also think that Spider-Man 2 has, I wouldn't say left a bad taste in people's mouths, but it's just like, you know how companies kind of get like a strike and they can like recover from it before they can take another strike, you know, 3 strikes you're out, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
I feel like Spider-Man 2 was the first strike for a lot of people. The gameplay, the swinging, all that stuff's kind of fine, but then like you have like the forced segments with MJ, which people did not like. You have...
Yeah, I was not crazy about those, and I played through Spider-Man 1 recently.
Yeah, you have that weird, like, there are side missions where you're doing shit like, you have to play as like this deaf graffiti artist for a little bit for some reason, and it's like, what the fuck is this doing in a Spider-Man game? And it's being developed by people who say like, I know you hate this, but we're just going to force it in a way that's more palatable for you. I think the whole Spider-Man 2, the game itself, how players reacted to it and how the developers reacted to the players reacting, I think has soured people a little bit on Insomniac's perfect reputation up to that point. And I don't mean to say that Insomniac was perfect beforehand. They did a lot of things I wasn't particularly fond of, but I think they're kind of on like a potential breaking point. And the formulas that they're using are definitely, that's like aside from Insomniac, it's just there are certain AAA things that people are just tired of, or that it doesn't wow anymore, you know. And I think that alongside all of the things that we've discussed in the game proper before talking about these specific tropes, I don't think the Wolverine is going to be a product that can overcome that. And I also don't think it has anything to lean on as far as like, oh, Wolverine, you like Wolverine, right? I'm like, is this like really the optimal Wolverine experience? Like, there's no X-Men. The dialogue doesn't really reflect him as a character. Is it just that it's blood and gory? You know, it's like, so if you wanted more context on what exactly is going on with that, I would encourage you to obviously reach out and look at some of the gameplay. If you and people in general to really feel this out and see what people are saying and why people are saying it. But that's kind of what's going on with the Wolverine. And the reason I call it an onslaught is because, you know, I think this is pretty telling. It's the noise around it has gotten to the point where somebody from Insomniac, the community and marketing director, I think his name is James Stevenson, he responded to all this. He said that, oh, it's just the social media algorithm amplifying and forcing negativity. It's like, I think he said it's a relentless, I have it right here, it's a relentless onslaught that I cannot believe is good for anyone's mental health nor representative. You know, and I'm just like, he did some fucking snide remark where he's just like, this is why I don't encourage devs to post online. I'm just like, who gives a fuck if the developers post online? What the fuck? Are you gonna hold that over our heads if the devs are too thin-skinned to go online and take criticism? Like, this is you're basically prepping them for, like, and I'm not saying it's gonna fail like this, but this is like the same shit that the people before Highguard failed. This is how you coddled the developers for Highguard. Like, they're going to get blindsided eventually if you just treat all of this negativity as something not worth addressing. You know, I'm not saying you need to send them out to the front lines, but people are saying this for a reason. The people that had bad things to say about Spider-Man 2, they didn't magically disappear. They're still out there playing video games, and they are not impressed by what you have to show with Wolverine, and now there are more people who are not impressed. So you can't just, you got to at least have some humility, because that buys you some grace for, like, the next time you move on to, like, a different project of some kind. But this is just like, you're setting yourselves up for failure. I have no real calls on, like, how Wolverine is going to perform, but I have some calls on what it looks like as a game, and I'm just not impressed. And I think a lot of people aren't either.
Yeah, I haven't seen too much about it. I mean, in the little bit that I have seen, it looked cool, and, like, just at a passing glance. I haven't really put it under my own microscope though, so I can't like give you a accurate report on that front. But the whole, like, bulletproof vest thing, like, why is he wearing that? Why is he wearing a bulletproof vest?
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, obviously that doesn't make or break a game, but it is something you notice, you know. And it's like, why is that?
This could be another situation of a death by 1,000 cuts, like,
exactly.
And if they're going to follow the same formula, it's going to be a lot more obvious this time around. So
yeah, I agree.
See where it goes.
We'll see what happens. I definitely recommend that. Just as, obviously, I think we talked about it last time, where it's just like, I'm not getting it. It's not wowing you enough to want to go out and buy a PlayStation 5 to fucking play it. And obviously, we were both kind of dour on Sony with, like, that whole physical announcement kind of thing. So it's not getting our money, but I still encourage you to go and see what we're talking about here, you know? Yeah. Just give it a glance at some point throughout the week, and maybe you'll have more to say about it next week. If not, you'll at least tell me what you feel about it, you know? But that's what's going on. Insomniac's lost a bit of that luster, and it's not looking good, I would say.
Yeah. All right, so dealer's choice. Do you want to do the last two small things? Do you want to tear into Blizzard?
We're going to tear into Blizzard.
Okay. What's going on with Blizzard, Anthony?
Yeah, so Jason Schreier's a rat.
Oh boy, here we go.
I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. I've never liked the guy, right? He's a great example of a lot of things that are wrong with the industry, which I might get to near the end of this. But Dan, let's talk a little bit about the Blizzard allegations of yesteryear, all right?
All right.
Before we start, and you're probably going to agree with what I am about to say, before we start, I need to say something that I'm not going to repeat over and over and over, because a lot of people like to repeat this like almost like a comma to like kind of show how good a person they are.
Okay.
Just to be clear, if there is actual misconduct, you don't get a pass from me. Crimes that are violent or sexual in nature, they need to be handled and investigated. I'm going to assume you agree with that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So my two caveats to this are, one, it needs to actually be a crime or a legitimately serious bit of misconduct. And two, I don't think a single allegation or accusation or some kind of claim should lead to a multi-year career-ending spiral for a single developer or an entire studio that can only be really rectified after 5 to 6 years of investigation. That all clear? Does that make everything?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so Blizzard's scandals from earlier in the decade came up recently, Dan. That's basically what this amounts to. There's
right. I kind of figured as much.
Yeah, there's a couple of viral clips going around. And to get us started, I'm going to take us back to the beginning of this all, right? July 2021, California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing, which, if I remember correctly now, is just called the Civil Rights Department, they sued Activision Blizzard following a multi-year investigation. The allegations were that Blizzard was fostering a quote-unquote frat boy workplace culture, which led to sexual harassment. Yes, and you've probably heard it more than a few times with other studios. Rockstar's another big one that had their own kind of sensitivity come to Jesus moment a couple years back, but that's separate. But this allegedly led to sexual harassment and discrimination against women. I'm going to read you some of the specifics that either were included directly in the lawsuit or things that were brought up at the time and framed as part of the workplace culture, all right? We have open sexual banter, such as comments about women's bodies, rape jokes, supervisors encouraging subordinates to hire prostitutes, and things like that. We have cube crawls, where male employees would allegedly drink heavily and then move cubicle to cubicle, engaging in unwanted lewd behaviors like crawling under the cubicles and whatnot. There were accusations of breast milk being stolen from the shared workspaces. There were claims that they would frequent a hotel suite that they dubbed the Cosby Suite, with the framing being that they chose the name based on the nefarious deeds they would be acting out in the suite. And the biggest and most major claim, you'll definitely remember this one, is that there was a female employee who killed herself on a business trip after dealing with a sexual relationship with one of her supervisors, along with the claims that explicit photos of her had been shared through employee channels. That was probably the biggest one in all this. Among these complaints were a handful of specific senior employees being named and accused of, just general drinking around the office, groping people, and using derogatory language. Now, I am not going to waste your time. I'm not going to be snarky about this. The bottom line is that most, if not all, of the claims either didn't happen or were exaggerated to some degree.
Jesus.
Yeah,
wow.
The best summary is that Blizzard has, as described earlier, a frat boy culture, which is incredibly common in the industry, or was incredibly common in the industry, and not an inherent bad or illegal thing. And there were a few cases of misconduct that were used to drag down the entire studio instead of holding just actual people, the actual responsible people accountable. I'm just going to read, I gotta find this note because this is very important. Hold on, where was it? One sec.
Yeah, I remember that was a really big deal in 2021.
Oh yeah, we definitely talked about it.
Yeah.
When it came up, because the some of these stories stick out with you, or some of the allegations stick out with you. So here's a bit of a quote from the settlement agreement that came from the lawsuit. Right? Mm-hmm. No court. Sorry. No court or any independent investigation has substantiated any allegations that there has been any systemic or widespread sexual harassment at Activision Blizzard. That Activision Blizzard senior executives ignored, condoned, or tolerated a culture of systemic harassment, retaliation, or discrimination, or that Activision Blizzard's board of directors, including the chief executive officer Robert Kotick, acted improperly regarding to the handling of any instances of workplace misconduct. Basically, as far as I can tell, there were a few handfuls, like there's a small handful, like one or two, maybe three people, who did something actionable, and they're no longer with the company, obviously. And I encourage that when it's actually something that happens, right?
Yeah, naturally.
Yes, but all this really did was to drag down the studio, and this whole thing is part of the reason Blizzard sucks now. Because of this frivolous lawsuit, it led to them losing multiple leads and senior employees who were uninvolved with any of this, and had Blizzard shift their hiring practices with an explicit goal. I'm going to read you the quote here. Get ready for this.
Okay. Yep.
We will increase the percentage of women and non-binary people in our workforce by 50%, and will invest $250 million to accelerate opportunities for diverse talent. Today, approximately 23% of our global employee population identifies as women or non-binary. Building on the success that King and other business units have achieved, we will seek to increase our percentage of women and non-binary professionals by approximately 50%. To more than 1/3 across the entire company within the next 5 years, and hopefully faster. Each franchise team, business unit, and functional area will be expected to have plans to help fulfill this ambition. So essentially, this led to every team in the company shifting from an already kind of shoddy merit-based hiring practice to an entirely identity-based one, which I think reflects in all of their properties, especially with the live service ones like Overwatch and World of Warcraft, right? So the reason that this has been getting traction lately is because this whole kind of thing, they settled some of the stuff they actually did, which quite frankly didn't have a lot to do with the sexual harassment stuff or any kind of discrimination. There was a few things settled right out of the gate, and people were paid, and then it settled like 2 to 3 years after the lawsuit was put out, very quietly, so nobody was talking about it. But now people are talking about it now. I opened this, Dan, by commenting on everyone's least favorite writer, Jason Schreier, who helped push these claims mainly by holding back some pieces of information and exaggerating others in order to sell his book, Play Nice, which I don't know if you remember that. He basically was writing, during all this stuff, he was writing a book about what was going on behind the scenes at Blizzard, and he was exaggerating a lot.
Yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, and quite frankly, all this was, even when, because right now he's doing damage control about it, where he's talking about how, like, yeah, sure, some things were exaggerated, but you still need to do this and that. He's doing a whole song and dance where he carefully fights the allegations that the Blizzard allegations were made up by the bleeding lawsuit, but ultimately this is a direct attack on the cultural aspects within legacy game development. This is something that we've talked about quite a few times throughout the years. Different groups come out, activist groups, they try to pin things on studios and the developers within them in order to affect change through pressuring executives. And Blizzard was one of the, they already kind of leaned a certain way, but these changes at Blizzard had a very clear effect in their hiring practices, which trickled into the games proper, which is why Blizzard kind of sucks now. Mm-hmm. And Jason Schreier is one of many people who try pushing this. His role is technically insider journalist, whatever you want to call it, but he has had a major chip on his shoulder against video games since 2013.
Video games as a whole? What was the catalyst to that?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked.
Oh, God.
So, 2013, Daniel, there was a short Kotaku post by Mr. Jason Schreier. He titled it, "Game developers really need to stop letting teenage boys design their characters." And it was focused on the game Dragon's Crown, which was published by Atlas. It was done by Vanillaware, who I talked about before. They're the guys that hand draw all their shit, right? They've done a handful of games. They're mainly on the console. They had a whole thing stick up their ass about PC ports and the like, but that's neither here nor there. And he wrote in it, he said something sarcastically like, "As you can see, the Sorceress was designed by a 14-year-old boy. Perhaps game development studios should stop hiring teenagers. At least they're cheap, I guess." And Dan, you've actually seen an image of the Sorceress, because I've actually used it as an example of something. I'm going to see if I can find it. It's in our workspace chat somewhere. Hold on. Here it is. Okay. So Dan, this is an image of the character, the Sorceress, from the game Dragon's Crown. Here you go. There's a picture.
Oh, yeah. You showed me that.
You remember this, yeah. So that was, he had a whole stick up his day. He was one of the early guys that adapted to this. So the artist for the game, he's a guy by the name of Kamitani. This must be repeated. He was not a teenager at the time of doing this. He responded on Facebook at the time, and he posted an illustration of 3 very muscular, bearded dwarves who were seemingly naked, but they were just stacked on kind of on top of each other. And he said, "It seems that Mr. Jason Schreier of Kotaku is pleased with neither the sorceress nor the Amazon. The art direction which he likes was prepared." So the implication is that you're just that he's gay. So he got shot. He got cleft back immediately for that. And what this led to is he went to NeoGAF. You remember NeoGAF?
I do.
Yes. It was kind of like an insider hangout for a lot of people. So he went there and he upped the ante because he got slapped across the face with this. It was very embarrassing for him. He immediately ran off there. He posted the same image, or like images of the same character I showed you, right? And he basically implied that if you were into that or you found that appealing, it was pedophilic in nature.
Oh God.
And he got into an argument with this photographer where he's basically like, "Oh, you can't look at this," and the photographer's saying, it was a multi-paragraph battle. I'm not doing it justice here, but basically every time he opened his mouth, this guy shut him down. He's like, "You can't treat art like this. You can't censor things just because you find them dissatisfying. You can't call everything you don't like pedophilic. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do all the other thing." And he basically ended it by saying, "Thank God there are no people like you in my art form, because you just throttle creativity," was essentially the takeaway. And ever since that day, he's become more and more prominent. He's picked fights with multiple developers: Arcane, CD Projekt Red, Rockstar, Naughty Dog, BioWare, Hello Games,
winner,
Bethesda. He has picked fights with nearly everyone. He famously has he famously, I forget which studio it was, but he posted an image of a studio when it was just like a bunch of dudes, like they posting a photo of what they're all the staff at the studio, right? And he said he basically implied that it's wrong that this studio was only made up of just single white guys, right? He basically complained that there were no women or minorities in the thing. Like he is all of the policies, all of the practices, all that kind of stuff, he is in full support of. But also he's of the corporate bootlicking variety, which is why he was running defense for moving all digital and the Netflix Grand Theft Auto 6 fiasco and all that kind of stuff. So he on
was
board
like
for all
oddly
this.
very much in favor of the whole Netflix thing, which like I saw that I was like, shut the fuck up, you idiot. Like I just
I like my whole thing is like I hesitate to say friend of the industry because that's how I kind of playfully refer to people who like are in the know but don't necessarily care about the art form. He is a friend of the industry as long as you share his moral framework, which was notable. Like, I think it's, first of all, that interaction 13 years ago, very embarrassing on its face. It's more embarrassing that it's seemingly colored his entire view on the medium. Like, it's amplified it, where like he has just never let go of this grudge, and it is only expanded to different things. So that's the little closure on that. I would say that, like, with all things aside, I think his only regret in all of this is that he was unable to do this to a Japanese studio because of that interaction years ago. Like, I'm sure he's happy with himself to a certain degree in, writing a book, making some money off of it, and essentially crushing one of those many frat boy studios that he's so afraid of and so offended by. But I think there's still something in his soul where he's just like, if only I could do this to the Japanese. Because he probably thinks of that image of the sorceress and the image of those 3 muscular dwarves, and it probably haunts him to some degree, which is why he's on the real path of a lot of this. But, yeah. So. Well,
now I know that.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Let's wrap up your 2 small items for the day, and then we can get to Slice of Life. I got a pretty funny one today.
That's fine, yeah.
So what's Cygames? So
Cygames is a publisher of a multitude of different games out there. They have to do with Grand Blue, a handful of gacha games and whatnot. But the main thing that we talked about on the podcast not too long ago, but I talked about that one game, Uma Musume, which is basically just horse racing, but they did it with like anime girls instead and whatnot. They recently held a panel for their localization, and it basically just upfront confronts a lot of the things I fucking hate about localization, where they basically spent a bunch of slides talking about, like, you know, like, it was just one of those things where they're just like, this is a character from the game, this is what she says, and it shows the Japanese text, and then it shows a straightforward translation, and then in the next breath they talk about how, in order to authentically capture this line, which has been adequately translated already, we decided to jazz it up, and we said, what can we do about this? Well, we looked at Gen Z humor to really spice things up, and I'm just like, oh my fucking god. So there's a term in Japan, there's a trope, it's called gyaru, which is it's basically slang. It's loosely translated to gal or something like that, and it's basically what it refers to is a younger woman who dresses in a very gaudy fashion. Typically, like, they have spray tans or some shit, or they dress in, like, not proper, all that stuff. Would you say I adequately just described that concept to you? Do you have a picture in your head of what that translates to, like a gaudy woman? Does that make sense to you? Okay, well, unfortunately, Dan, these people think you're fucking retarded, so the stand-in for that was Gen Z. They decided like, you are too stupid to understand this or learn it in the span of 2 sentences, so they just retranslated this entire trope into something it isn't. They have a character who's kind of like old-timey, you know, who talks in like a kind of antiquated way or has mannerisms in that way, so they took a line of her saying okie dokie and made it some thing that nobody's heard of in like 30 years. I'm sorry, not 30. So a phrase that nobody's used in 80 years. I'm just like, why are you taking liberties to make things make less sense? And you have a bunch of people arguing because, like, I think an example I used is like there's a scene where they are celebrating Christmas and they say very loudly, "Merry Christmas," but it's translated in text to "Happy Holidays," and you had people just flat out saying like, "Oh, why do you care so much?" I'm like, "Are you fucking retarded? Do you just consume whatever's in front of you?" That's what frustrates me so much about all this, Dan. Is there are so many fucking people out there who will say something's not happening, and when you confirm that it is happening, they'll just be like, "Why do you care? Just stop! I don't have the mental bandwidth to handle this," and they just get so defensive and they call you weird for like having standards, and it just frustrates me to no end. So yeah, that's what's going on with Cygames. They rubbed more shitty localization in my face. And you know what's funny about this, Dan? You know, because there's been a conversation, I know I've brought it up before, I said these people should be replaced with AI, right? I've said that before. Yeah. I stand by it. A post of theirs has been circulating. It's just one of those situations where one hand doesn't talk to the other. So, like, you had some marketing guy go take a picture of the localization guy's desk, or somehow this got transferred there. This happened like a year or 2 ago. And it's just like, hey guys, check out the desk of one of our localizers hard at work. And people enhanced that photo, and you know what they fucking saw on the desktop?
Oh boy.
The program DeepL. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
It is a translation software that is handled by AI. So, little open secret, Dan, is that for the longest time, people have been using machine tools, like before AI, but machine tools to automatically translate things to get like rough draft. It's an open secret. A lot of people in the industry use that. But to have all this kerfuffle and protest against AI, and then you have this person come up, use AI to translate it, and then just take liberties anyway after getting a faithful translation, do you know how fucking frustrating that is to hear from me? The person who has been screaming about this for however many years now? Ridiculous.
Yeah, you really must be like going crazy. I
can't, man.
I couldn't.
Like right now, like you will hear arguments from some of the people we've talked about before who are advocates for these people. They will say you can't replace them with machines, but then it turns out they're using the machines anyway and just writing their own stories and characters on top of it.
They've replaced themselves with the machines.
They've replaced themselves with the machines, but they don't want to be replaced by the machines. I need these people to be replaced by the machines already, and I'm losing my shit.
Oh, God. Tell me what's going on with Resident Evil. How are those numbers doing?
This one's much smaller. It's really simple. This because this came up in the whole physical versus digital debate.
Okay.
U.S. Sales for Requiem were 22% physical and 78% digital. In Japan, it was 51% physical, 49% digital.
Wow.
In France, it was 55% physical, 45% digital. In the UK, it was 40-60 physical digital, and then In Australia, it was 43.57 digital. Just kind of, highlighting again that like physical, people like to play with the numbers as much as they can, but physical, there's still a demand for physical.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem to be as cut and dry as they'd have us believe.
And that doesn't even address that in some regions, Requiem sold out in physical form. So it's just like, what are we really fucking doing here?
Yeah, I don't know. God, I don't want to talk about this because we're going to get into like this whole big thing with the physical media again. We just don't have the time for it.
Yep.
But more number fudging is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
God. All right, let's do slice of life. Then we could wrap this up. Do you have anything this week?
Yeah, just a very small thing. So D23 is going on, that Disney thing. Or is it D24? I always get it fucked up.
D23. I don't know what the 23 stands for, but I know it's D23.
Yeah, I never ended up looking that up, but yeah, it is D23. It's going on right now, and obviously there's one particular game franchise that is always locked in because it's a Disney thing, and that's Kingdom Hearts. So they announced a bunch of Kingdom Hearts stuff. They showed off Kingdom Hearts 4. They announced that they're doing an animated series and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of neat. Let's see where it goes. I have things to say about Kingdom Hearts 4, but that's not what this is about. They interviewed Nomura, the guy, one of the big Final Fantasy guys, who's also he's the big Kingdom Hearts guy, and he was talking about his thought process behind what worlds they add to Kingdom Hearts. And he said, he's like, oh, I like to add worlds that people don't expect. So for Kingdom Hearts 1, it's like I absolutely needed to have the Nightmare Before Christmas in there, just because people would go, wow, you added that. And I'm just like, oh, that's so neat, because I love it. It's one of my favorite worlds in the series, and it showed up for 2 games. So I'm just like, I was the target audience for once. How nice is that? that's really
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so for mine, I have a little bit of a story to tell you that I got an immense kick out of when I was told it. It's an anecdotal story about the purchase of a PlayStation.
Okay.
A buddy of mine who uses his PlayStation all the time, like for long stretches of gaming sessions, at least 5 to 6 days a week. He uses it a lot. A big PlayStation fan. He plays a lot of games on it. Something happened to his PlayStation, and it just wasn't working anymore. Oh no, I know what it was. The HDMI port receded back into the chassis for the PlayStation. Oh. Yeah, and I don't know how Sony makes their consoles, obviously, but usually a I/O port, such as an HDMI port, is going to be soldered directly onto the board for more efficient usage. It's not really going to be connected via anything else. It's right on the board like that. That's it. So when his broke and receded back into the actual chassis, he wasn't going to take it anywhere to get it fixed, because he really couldn't be without it for as long as they wanted to keep it, which is understandable. So Anthony, he had to buy a new PlayStation.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he goes around to different retailers trying to find a new PlayStation. Almost every single retailer is sold out except for a GameStop near him. So he calls the GameStop, asks if they have it in stock. They say yes. He asks if they can hold it for him. They're like, absolutely not. So he leaves right after he gets off the phone, goes right to GameStop to go pick up the PlayStation. He gets to GameStop. He, says, he was the guy on the phone. He's here for the PlayStation. They grabbed the PlayStation. Now, it was the 2 terabyte PS5 Pro version. Okay? So it's the highest end model that you can get of the PlayStation. They go to ring it up and everything. They ring it up, and the clerk that's at the GameStop brings it up, looks at him, looks back at the computer, looks back at him. He goes, this is $1,000, right? And then he's like, yeah, I know what I'm getting myself into, buys it and leaves. He wasn't the one that paid for it. His dad helped him out to buy it because, it's a fucking $1,000, and he doesn't just have money. That. Yeah, it doesn't just have that lying around. The reason why I chose this as my anecdotal slice of life this week is because I found it incredibly humorous that even the GameStop employees, who generally speaking, the GameStop employees, the Best Buy employees that are working in the gaming department or whatever, or any game shop, those are the real salt of the earth, gamers that I think would probably listen to this podcast. They really know what's going on. They're kind of plugged in more or less. So when one of them turns to my friend and goes, this is $1,000, right? That kind of speaks volumes, because even everybody knows that nobody wants to pay that amount of money for a PlayStation, let alone it being so late in this this generation's life cycle. Even though we have no idea when the next consoles are coming, and both of us, have said ad nauseum that there's no need for a new generation of consoles. There's absolutely zero need. But they're still going to come. And like that only makes me wonder how much are these new consoles going to be if the fucking current top of the line ones are like $899 or whatever it is. Easily, it's over $1,000 after taxes. Like, it really makes you think. I just thought it was hysterical that even the GameStop guys were like, this is as much as it costs, right? Like, you had to warn him before he actually swiped his card. But yeah, that was my little anecdotal story for the week. I just thought it was really funny. I wanted to share it on air. Oh, my God. But anywho, if you are still listening, thank you very much. This is episode 119 of the Pregame Network Podcast. We will be back next week to talk about whatever happens this coming week, as usual. So stay tuned, and we will see everybody next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.